All right, everybody, what's going on? What's going on? Yeah, it's that time. I don't want to hear anything about a point because I'm exactly on time. Exactly on time. Ah, shit, why is this not loading? Hello? The fuck? All right, there we go. There we go, there we go, there we go. All right, we're all good. We're all good. Um, The other piece of good news is that unlike that other stream, I already have my espresso nice and ready. All right, there we go. No points, nothing accrued. I think I've been on a good streak. I think I'm back on a streak. I think I lost the streak briefly, just for a second. I lost the streak, and now it's back. Now the streak is back. Um, yeah, the streak is back. Uh, let's get the stream lights up to 50 real quick. Let's get the stream lights up to 50. All right, everybody. So, let me begin by saying this. I have some unfortunate news. It's not unfortunate. I guess it's not unfortunate. It's just news. It's just news. You guys might view it as unfortunate news. For me, it's just news. It's all good. Yeah. The unfortunate slash fortunate slash normal neutral news is as follows. On Monday, I will not be streaming. No stream on Monday. There's no Monday stream. I'm gonna be, no. I'm gonna be taking a little vacation for the first time in a year. But I'll be back by Wednesday. Okay. We're going to Cancun, so that'll be nice. And Ender says that's one smallest espresso. Lol. Yeah, that's what espressos are. Espressos are tiny. They're small little things. They're little espressos. Yeah. So I'm gonna be gone. I'll be back Wednesday. But Tuesday video will go up as usual. Tuesday video is in fact already completed. Pretty much. Not literally completed, but my end of it is done. And yeah, no Monday stream, but I want to make it up. So I might do 2 streams, I think, next week or something. So just watch out for that. Watch out for that. I might do like a Thursday and a Friday stream. I might do a Thursday and Friday stream. Henchme976 says espressos are a scam. I like espressos. This comes out of like a little Nespresso machine. It was a birthday gift. My parents got it for me back in like 2022 or something like that. Retro Records, thanks for bringing Yonko to your member for 32 months. Hey, Manga Morge, what would each straw do for work in the real world? Also, did you get the car back? Thanks for the banger content. Oh, yeah, for sure, man. And the car? Yeah, the car has been fine for a while. For those of you who don't know, the car got stolen twice. But the last time it was stolen was a year ago now. So that's been fine for a while. So don't worry about the car. The car is all good. As for what each strat would do in the real world, so Oda actually released this. He told us about this. What One Piece. Every Straw Hat's job in the real world, Oda. I think Oda did yeah. But I kind of disagreed with some of them. Let's see. Nami, Usopp, and Chopper would be... Nami would be a nursery school teacher, apparently. But I don't know why she wouldn't just be a meteorologist. I guess maybe it's just... I feel like she would be a good weather woman also. Usopp would be a graphic designer. I think that makes sense. Yeah, he did the Straw Hats flag. Chopper would be a grade school teacher. Why wouldn't he just be a doctor? That doesn't even make sense. Why would he be a doctor in the One Piece world, but in the real world he'd be a grade school teacher? Okay, I guess it's just to make it interesting, right? Robin would be a flight attendant. That's silly. Why wouldn't she just be a historian? Like a lot of the jobs they have are real jobs. Frankie would be a pilot. Why wouldn't he just be a fucking engineer? And Brooke would be a detective. Why would he be a musician? Even if Oda's going with like backup options for these, that's interesting. Hold on, time out. Frankie Robin fans, did you just hear this? Is this even accurate? Am I reading the correct thing? Because a lot of this stuff seems made up. But Frankie Robin fans, isn't that interesting? What Oda said Frankie and Robin's jobs would be in the real world? Isn't that interesting? He said that Frankie would be a pilot and Robin would be a flight attendant. That seems slightly sexist, but if we set that aside, isn't that curious? That out of all the straw, it's the two that he kind of pairs together as working together in the real world. Real world. Straw Hat Jobs, Oda. Yeah, isn't that interesting? Fuck. Why is this not? Hold on. Yeah, wait, I'm trying to find something that seems... No, this is all legit. Yeah. Robin and Frankie would work together. Robin would be a flight attendant and Frankie would be a pilot. The thing is that, like, Sanji would be a beauty salon worker. Don't know why he wouldn't just be a... Yeah, okay, so if we're going with occupations that they don't already have, that makes sense, right? But then in that case, I don't know why Brook would be a detective, because I don't think Brook has ever... He's not really, like... He's not really smart. I don't think I've ever seen him, like, solve... If Oda said Robin would be a detective, that would make sense. Sanji being a beauty salon worker... I could see that making sense, but I think he would just sexually harass the clientele too much. I don't imagine that working. He might be like Zohan. Who's seen the movie Zohan? You don't mess with the Zohan? That's a good movie. Tony Chopper, elementary school teacher. That makes sense. Wouldn't he just be like a pet, in a petting zoo or something? Robin as a flight attendant, I think, is just random and weird because she can do so many other things, right? She could be a scholar in so many other ways. I think she could be a detective. Frankie being a pilot, I think that tracks. Or a race car driver. Zoro would be a police officer. That's pretty fucked. He'd just be a fed. And Luffy would be a firefighter. I think that tracks. Luffy being a firefighter makes sense. But yeah, Frankie Robin fans, I think that's pretty huge. I think that's pretty notable. Also, let's get the stream likes up to 50 real quick. Let's get the stream likes up to 50. Behenor, thanks a lot. After your previous week podcast about Emu, I now strongly believe that One Piece is one last remaining piece of Forbidden Sun, the source of all devil fruits. I do think that, because if you watch my mural video that I did a while back in February, I talked about how I felt that it was after the sun that was touched that suddenly devil fruit powers became a thing, because I believe that released dream energy into the world, and I think that we are still looking for this sun. I do think that the sun that the devil is holding in that mural, is a real tangible thing that's somewhere in the One Piece world that has to be found. 1 second. Yeah, I believe it's a real tangible thing that has to be found. One Piece is the one last remaining piece of Forbidden Sun, the source of all devil fruits. Yeah. I think that is a possibility. I also have, you know what? That actually gives me a little idea. Let me jot this down before I forget. What is this shit? Theory. Yeah. I have a little idea. I got a little idea. Okay. Beach stream, says Ajay. I thought for a moment, honestly, about doing a little stream from Cancun. I was like, maybe that'll be fun. But then I thought about it. I think I just need a big, just no thinking, no responsibilities type, just decompress and detach. So I think because on paper, I'm like, oh, that would be fine. That'd be fun. But I think in actuality, maybe it would be healthier if I don't do that. Yeah, and I do think that the One Piece being one last remaining piece of Forbidden Sun. So I don't know about that, but I do think the One Piece being I think the One Piece itself is going to be the entire world being put back together into a single continent, a Pangea. But I think that the treasure that they're trying to find will be that sun that's shown in the mural, because I think that is tied to the dream magic that exists in the One Piece world. Milk, thanks for the 2. Would love to see Vegapunk holograms versus nightmares. Vegapunk holograms versus nightmares. Holograms versus nightmares. What does that mean? Vegapunk. Oh shit! Like the imaginary holograms that he has versus the nightmares. Yeah, that'd be funny. I feel like the nightmares would win. The nightmares are fucking huge. Um, Jamari Cruz, thanks a lot. Thoughts on God Valley is secretly Thriller Bark. That's a fun theory. I did someone mentioned that recently. That's a fun theory. I don't know if I buy that, but because sometimes it's just like, but the coincidences though, it's just that it doesn't look anything like God Valley, right? Like let me look at Thriller Bark. Also, it's just like how would it come out of the New World? Well, no, maybe it wasn't in the New World, right? God Valley's not established to be in the New World necessarily. Looking at Thriller Bark, maybe it makes sense. Maybe it makes sense. That'd be kind of crazy. Thriller Bark's a wacky ship. It's just a wacky concept in general. Um, how big is the? How does it even move? Thriller Bark. You guys want to do a ships tier list in One Piece? Not like those ships, but like a little bit of a. I might crank one of those out. That could be funny. Like a little tier list on the the various ships of One Piece. Not romantic ships, but you get what I'm saying, right? Um, yeah, maybe I could find a little tier list for that. Nirad, thanks a lot for being a Yonko tier member for 4 months. Also, Pirate King tier members, the Pirate King podcast for the month is now out and published, so go check that out. I got in depth on some things in that one. Particularly, I had a fun question this time around, at least fun for me, which was just like, what is the full process from start to finish of making like a video, like a Tuesday video? So that was like a 10-minute answer. Nirad, thanks for being a Yonko tier member for 4 months. Crazy how the more we go into One Piece, our past expectations look ridiculous. It's unfathomable the heights this final saga will reach. Hope Oda stays alive. Oh man, you didn't have to end it like that, man. But yeah, the final saga, the scale of everything that's happening right now is so much more insane than I would have thought, even just going back to the Wano arc. Like, going back to the Wano arc, people forget, but it really did seem like a lot of things were just... Because we didn't know about the Gods Knights, we didn't know the Gorsei were strong, we didn't know about the Seraphim. All of that was just not a thing, right? So, going back to that point in time, I think the prevailing assumption was just that, okay, we're probably going to fight Marines, and we're probably going to fight Blackbeard, and that's going to be maybe the main thing. And then it wasn't even really common belief that Emu is going to be like a big bad that has to be defeated by Luffy necessarily. It was a thing, but like a lot of people also felt like it might just be Blackbeard or whatever, so it was kind of split down the line on that. You can go like look at past discussions and Reddit stuff and past videos and stuff. But at this point, just the scale of what the Celestial Dragons have, and then the scale of the ancient weapon stuff, and then the scale of like just the lore in general and how far back all of this shit goes, it's in a totally different dimension than even just the previous saga versus Four Emperors, we realized. Salvador, thanks for the 5. What can Smoker contribute to the story now that Kobe is firmly the good Marine viewpoint? Fujitora is also still around, also a favorite One Piece game. I've not played any One Piece games. I don't play that many video games in general. The last video game I played was Bloodborne, and I want to say that was almost a year ago. It's coming up on a year ago at this point that I played Bloodborne. I'm technically playing It Takes Two with my girlfriend, and that's going well, but we are on-off with that. We're on-off with It Takes Two. It Takes Two is a lot of fun, though. It's a ton of fun. Fujitora is also still around. Dude, I don't know what the Smoker situation is, but it's confusing as fuck because, like, we're reaching a point in the story where it's become clear that all the characters that are long-running characters in One Piece, like Kobe, like Aokiji, like Garp, like Sabo, like fucking Mihawk, Buggy, Oda had plans for all of them. Like, he had very elaborate plans for what Shanks, Dragon, all of these guys are going to be doing. Fucking Kuma. He had elaborate plans for all the side characters in One Piece, except seemingly Smoker and potentially Kid. Even Kid has more relevance right now doing something, but we don't really see it just yet. Tom says, Morge, we already did that, I'm 90% sure. Oh, we already did that one. Tekking did the ship tier list. I mean, I'll just say straight up that I think the Strahds have the best ship. It's the only thing you can say about it is that it's just too compact. But Oda obviously put the most thought into it. And, like, I remember there was a time that Oda released, like, some detailed breakdowns of like what the Going Merry living day-to-day living is like, and what the Thousand Sunny day-to-day living setup is like, and it's really cute and really in depth, and it's you can tell that it comes from a place of Oda like being very passionate and like appealing to his own sort. Like he gets very into the fantasy of it, of like what's my ideal like like little homie friend club gonna look like if we're sailing the seas? What would my ideal little ship look like? And he clearly designed it around that concept. It's very cute. Makes me want to live on the Thousand Sunny. I think the anime even did like a break, like a little segment covering it or something like that. But yeah, Smoker, I don't know. So if I had to guess what Smoker can contribute, I genuinely don't have a guess. I don't think I have a good guess regarding Smoker. I would love for him to become a Straw Hat still, but the chances of that happening now are lower than... I can't even... It's not even lower. It's just like, it's so fucking random at this point. There's no evidence for anything of Smoker becoming a Straw Hat. I would fucking love if Smoker became a Straw Hat, though. It just seems so... The dream seems so far away at this point. He would have to come to Elbaf. He was traveling with a poneglyph recently. I hope he's just not turned... It's like Smoker and Tashigi. And that's the bizarre thing, because Tashigi seems to be a legitimate love interest for Zoro long-term, the closest thing to it that we've had in the story. And she fucking sucks. And, like, she's had moments, you know, like Punk Hazard. And like, there's so many moments, actually, throughout the story for Tashigi that seem to imply that there's some growth coming for her. Like, the end of Alabasta, she's, like, so upset with herself because she's too weak to dispense justice and everything like that. And so Smoker gives her the challenge at the end, like, get stronger so that you can enforce justice the way that you want. And then you hit Punk Hazard, and it's the same fucking shit, which is she's too weak. Like, Law fucking punks her and tells her that she's too weak. The weak don't get to decide how they die. And then with Smoker, it's also just like Smoker and Tashigi, they've had this, like, long-running storyline of, like, wanting to become stronger to enact their sense of justice. And it just seems like they hit this wall. And I hope that that wall leads to at least something character-wise for them, and not just Oda forgetting them and throwing them aside like they're lost to or like unwanted toys. I like to believe that there's something for Smoker, but I genuinely don't know what it would be at this point, because he's in this odd category where every other character that you can kind of expect to make an impact, they are either they're either very strong or have a very high level of influence or potential mechanism for impact. So, for example, like, let's say Shank's very strong, right? So we can obviously assume and high level influence, right? But then even if you step down, you've got someone like Sabo. Sabo's not like Yonko level or anything, but he's strong and he's in a position that has a lot of leverage for impact, right? Like being the second in command of the Revolutionary Army, now the Flame Emperor, he's become a symbol of hope, all of that stuff, right? But you can go even past that. You can say someone like Vivi. Vivi's not strong, but Vivi has a high potential level of impact in the story due to being monarch of Alabasta, which is a very important nation, and the ties to Lily and everything like that, suggesting that there's some significant role just through her heritage and destiny that Vivi's set to play. Right? And Imu's after her and everything. So you can kind of go down the list and like pick out side characters. It's like Fujitora, he's already an admiral. Kobe, he's just like a rear admiral or whatever the fuck he is right now. But he's getting stronger very fast. And two, he has the potential, because he's the hero of the Marines, he has the potential to have an impact that's beyond his strength in terms of what he could symbolize if he decides to like put his foot down and make a stand about, like, the Marines are not going to stand for this, we're not going to help the Celestial Dragons, or whatever the fuck the story might be. I'm not trying to make up some story for Kobe, but there's so much potential for him just in terms of the combination of strength, real-world influence, things like that, right? With Smoker, he's this odd man out in the story where it's just, like, he's not one of these up-and-coming forces, like one of the Supernova, or an established powerhouse like a Yonko or like Revolutionary Army leader or an admiral or anything like that. In terms of influence and role, he's just this nothing. He's just a vice admiral. He's just a vice admiral. But then it's not even like with Kobe or something like that Smoker's got this trajectory of becoming way stronger. It seems like he is what you get. Maybe he'll get stronger, but short of getting like Conqueror's Haki, which I don't think he's gonna fucking get or something, I don't know what the future would be for a character like Smoker. There's just it's just this nothing in terms of like how he can really change things. And what's crazy is that Smoker was even he was kicked out of or no he was kicked out of the narrative kind of, but it was stated that he's gonna go meet up with Vegapunk and have Vegapunk work on those kids to fix their gigantification and stuff. And that was kind of the little side plot that Smoker was sent on. So I figured that when we meet Vegapunk, that's when we'll reunite with Smoker. Except we meet with Vegapunk and Smoker's not fucking there. So he's just gone from the story, kind of. So long-winded way of saying that the closest way I could see Smoker having an impact is if he joins the Straw Hats, because he's not going to do shit in the Marines that we can see so far. He's not strong enough to do anything on his own in the Final War. He could fucking leave the Marines and no one would give a shit, because on his own he's not like a fucking Yonko level threat or even anything close, not even Supernova level threat. So yeah, I would love to see him join the Straw Hats, because I don't know where the fuck he goes after this. Straw Hat Shako, thanks for being a member for 32 months. What do you think the significance of Reversy / Othello? So I don't know shit about like the Japanese culture side of things or whatever, but I would say that I think it's a very simple visual of like One Piece is about good and evil. Oda doesn't do grays as much. That's pretty rare in the story. It's a story about good triumphing over evil over and over, arc after arc. And it's pretty simple symbolism of like the bad guy characters in One Piece, the evil devil that rules the world being like this black shadowy figure, and all of his subordinates being like these black evil demons or whatever. And then the hero, Luffy, is the sun god, covered in white, like symbolized by white, symbolized by good. And yeah, so just the black and white pieces being flipped or whatever. I don't know. I maybe somebody suggested in a previous stream that maybe Luffy has the power to flip all the pieces back or something like that, right? Like through the power of Nika or whoever or whatever the fuck. So, I mean, I could see something like that. I think it's just a very simple visual of good versus evil, and then like Emu flipping all the good characters into bad characters. That works well with that visual. And Luffy's side being represented by the white pieces and them not trying to fight back. That also works as well. Tom, thanks for the 2. What do you think Roger left with the One Piece / added to it? So you know what's funny? I earlier in the stream you saw me just type like some little notes or whatever. I just had like a little idea on what actually Roger saw at Laugh-Tale besides the poneglyph, and what the situation might be with the sun. I think that Roger, if I'm correct, I think that Roger actually may have had a big impact and done something to set the next generation up to actually get what needs to be gotten. But it's so random and hard to explain here that I think it's a really cool theory. But I think it's very random and hard to explain here. I'll do the theory soon. Hold on. Let me see one thing. Ah, shit. Okay. All right. Does this make sense? I don't know what I'm seeing here. All right, whatever. Okay. JP, thanks for the 5. I'm more convinced than ever that Mosa is a Gorsei. Incident that scared them equals Egghead. They're busy now equals Mauricio and Flames. Yeah, I think that could be the case. I think it'd be cool if Mosa turns out to be fucking Jupiter or one of the Gorsei or something like that. Because I do think that there is going to be a Gorsei that's a traitor. I've put it on the record before that I think that if there is a traitor among the Gorsei, I think it's Jupiter. I did a video on that. I think it'd be cool. Also interesting that Somers is Jupiter relative as well. But I do think that's a really good potential call that Mosa's a Gorsei. JWP, thanks for the 5 memberships. Thanks as usual, man. Thanks for gifting the good people of chat with all these 5 bombs. Angel Rees, MOH. Stretch, Snake 5, Demiz Mob. Everyone say thanks to JWP. Everyone in chat, just in general, say thanks to JWP because like he's generally just always coming through with these five or so gifted memberships. And so many people in chat have become Yonko tier members and so on through that. So thanks a lot as usual, man. Otherworlds JT, thanks for the 2. You should do a Conquerors Haki ranking stream. I think that could be fun. Here, I can do that right now. Hold on. I can do that right now. But if I do that, it's almost too close to like a just a just a straight up ranking stream. You know, because like Conquer's Haki is so crucial. I feel like people, because it's so crucial, I wonder if people will just take that as my in general blanket ranking for everything. You know what I'm saying? Because you could look at it that way. Conquer's Haki is very, very important in the grand scheme of things. Um, how about I just do this? I'm not going to do a straight up tier list. If I'll say off the top of my head. Off the top of my head, I feel like. Yeah, off the top of my head, I would say that strongest Conqueror's Haki users alive today. I feel like strongest Conqueror's Haki user alive today is. Maybe it's fucking. Is it Emu? Maybe it's Shanks. Shanks has got compared to Joy Boys. Don't know how much to read into that there. Um, Maybe it's Dragon. I think it's one of either Shanks, Emu, or Dragon. I would say that one of those three is the strongest Conqueror's Haki user that we've got. So I think that'll be the case with that. And then I would say other characters that are likely very, very strong Conqueror's Haki users. I think Garp has still got crazy strong Conqueror's Haki. It's just he can't fight as, like, his physical body can't keep up with what he once was. So I think that's probably the case. And then I'd say Mihawk, obviously, really strong Conqueror's Haki. Yeah, Mihawk should have really strong Conqueror's Haki, definitely high up there. And beyond that, it's just then we have question marks. Like, oh, Loki might have really strong Conqueror's Haki. Loki could have strong Conqueror's Haki. Then I think we get to the group of characters that are like, they definitely have, obviously, Conqueror's Haki, and they're strong Conqueror's Haki, but like they're not at their full potential yet. So like Zoro, Yamato, I assume Kid, things like that. Characters like that, obviously. Maybe if Akainu was awakened Conqueror's Haki, I think he would have very strong Conqueror's Haki. But if he doesn't have Conqueror's Haki at the moment, then it is what it is. The Gorsei also all seem to have Conqueror's Haki, and I think Warcury seem to have particularly strong Conqueror's Haki. You know what? Maybe we make a little tier list. I don't want it. Man, do I want to do a tier list for that right now? I don't know if I want to do a tier list for that right now. We could do a tier list for that. It would just be, I think it would get pretty vicious, I think, in terms of like people's opinions. Because it's just that, like, you know, Conqueror's Haki obviously matters a lot. And it's just like, if I say somebody has a certain level of Conqueror's Haki and then everybody disagrees, I don't know. I think people could take it too much as like a strict strength ranking or something like that. The Water God says Smoker will die of lung cancer off screen. Oh, that would be... Wow, what a beautiful story. What a beautiful story. I don't think that'll happen. Maybe it's just Smoker was just a no smoking message to viewers the whole time. Also, let's get the stream likes up to 100 real quick. Behenor, thanks a lot. Would you be interested in playing Undertale and Deltarune someday? They're a shared universe. Oh, I didn't know Undertale's a shared universe with Deltarune, because I knew Undertale was like a popular game from like years ago at this point. I didn't know Deltarune, because people have been talking about Deltarune. I didn't know it's the same thing. They're a shared universe made solely by one dude, Toby Fox, who somehow is a genius storyteller and a great music composer. You know, with video games, I've heard that, like, obviously the big AAA games, it takes like hundreds of people to make a game, but because the games become so spread out in terms of their production, like oftentimes like these indie games made by like really just one person or like a very small team can have like a tighter concept that they can execute and more of a coherent vision. So I don't know, I've never really looked into Undertale or Deltarune, but I don't know. Let me just look up, what does Undertale look like? Let me see. Undertale. Video game. Undertale video game. Yeah, I recognize these visuals. I don't know. I don't think I'd be a big fan of this because it's like the 2D top-down look, kind of, where you're traveling around. I don't know if I'd play this. I don't know. It seems fun, but I was never like a Pokemon kid either because my mom never got me Pokemon like Game Boy shit. But yeah, that's maybe not my preference. Although to be fair, one of my favorite games that I played in the past was Stick RPG. Who's played Stick RPG? Phenomenal game. Phenomenal game. And that's kind of like that. And then I think they made a Stick RPG 2 where they blew the whole concept. Because Stick RPG 1, it was very simple. You can go to, like, you've got the tiniest little town in the world and you can travel like 4 places or something like that. And that's pretty much it. And then Stick RPG 2, they made a whole ass city. And that was too overwhelming. I was like, this is not for me. I signed up for Stick RPG 1, where all I could do is go to work, make $5 an hour or something, and then go to bed. People who've played Stick RPG know what I'm talking about. Also, let's get the stream lights up to 100 real quick. Lee Peace, thanks for the 5. Zoro, Kizaru, Cracker, and Marco's Fruit. Zoro, Kizaru, Cracker, and Marco's Fruit. Zoro, Kizaru, Cracker, and Marco's Fruit versus Sanji, Killingham, Kid, Kuzan's Fruit. What? Egghead Island with 6 months prep time. Zoro has advanced, conquers Haki. Sanji, indestructible. This is the most... Sanji's indestructible? Do you mean he has his exoskeleton? Zoro has Kizaru, Cracker, and Marco's Fruit versus Sanji with Killingham, Kid, and Kuzan's Fruit. Egghead Island with 6 months prep time. What's Zoro going to do with prep time? I guess train. Sanji's very smart, so maybe he could do something with prep time. But if he's not allowed to, like, rig things or, like, bring extra weapons or whatever, I don't think that would... Sanji's not a big prep time person, though. He's more of, like, an improviser on the fly. Zoro with Kizaru, Cracker, and Marco's Fruit. That's just a very strong combination. I think he's got better fruits than... Killingham's Fruit is a lot better than Cracker's Fruit. So Killingham's Fruit is way better than Cracker's Fruit. But then you're giving Sanji Kid's Fruit and Kuzan's Fruit. I think Kizaru's Fruit and Marco's Fruit are better than both of those fruits. And once you give Zoro Marco's Fruit, it's just like, it kind of cancels out Sanji's advantage with the durability. I think Zoro just takes it. Like, regardless of... Even if you thought Zoro and Sanji are dead even, like, normally, strength-wise, I think you just gave Zoro a better combination of things. Killingham's Fruit is really powerful, though. I think we need to see more of Killingham's Fruit in action, because so far we've just seen it, like, steamroll all... We've seen... Oh, shit. Might need to get some water in a second. We've seen Killingham's Fruit steamroll all the giants, so we know it's, like, broken as far as we can tell. But I don't know if it's as good in a 1v1. Because in a 1v1, there's only one character whose nightmares it's producing. Killingham's Fruit is almost like the ultimate fruit for mass, large number battles, you know? Mihawk D. Goat, thanks for being a Yonko tier member for 21 months, man. What will it take for you to put the current top tiers above old legends? If they show a new level of Haki, will you say the old gen had that as well? So it's very difficult because we don't have a lot of points of comparison. The only crossover point of comparison we have is like, so we have Whitebeard from before, but Whitebeard at Marineford was so sick and old that it became difficult to compare. And then the other factor in that is that, like, the characters Whitebeard fought, we don't really get to see them fight too many other people either. Like, Aokiji, I guess Kizaru fights Luffy in the post-time skip. You have Aokiji, but Aokiji fights Garp, and Garp is another old legend, right? So then it's just like, what is that telling us? And then Whitebeard obviously fought Akainu, but Akainu hasn't fought anyone since the time skip except for Aokiji, right? If we had old Marineford Whitebeard fighting, like, I don't know, like Shanks or Kaido or something, then we get a better idea of how to scale things. But I think there's still some missing pieces there. And then with old Garp, there's so much disagreement as to how he did against the Blackbeard Pirates and Aokiji and everything. And then at the same time, it's not like we've seen Aokiji fight anybody else really outside of fucking old Whitebeard and old Garp that really matters. So we just need some pieces to be connected here. I feel like God Valley will give us some insight. And I'm sure Oda will find ways to make it more clear how things scale and match up. Because we know that the new generation, you know, like Luffy, Blackbeard, presumably Zoro, etc., they're gonna reach the heights of the old generation and, like, at least in Luffy's case, surpass it, right? So I imagine Oda's going to have ways of showcasing that for us, but I couldn't tell you confidently right now, like, is Blackbeard end of story supposed to be stronger than Prime Roger? I don't know. I have no idea. Maybe he's supposed to be stronger than Prime Rocks, but does that mean that he's stronger than Prime Roger? I don't know. So I think we just got to wait on Oda to give us some more benchmarks. Salvador, thanks for the 2. Any tips for super comprehending a manga chapter? Super comprehending a manga chapter. No. I don't have any tips for super comprehending any specific manga chapter, but I would say that, like, in general, the easiest way to do continuous story analysis is just take notes. If you just take notes, then you start to notice so many things. That's all it really is. If you just take notes, anytime a character mentions something that seems like, oh, that could be like a hint at a thematic message or an idea, or like you notice something and you notice like a little parallel between this character and that character, or you notice some consistent messaging, or you notice some sort of visual symbolism or something like that, all you have to do is start taking some notes, and then the other things will click more and you'll catch them more as they go forward. Strad Shaco, thanks for the 5. Any shot that the One Piece is a literal Reversy game that shows where One Piece would need to be placed to start a chain reaction of flipping black to white? I don't think that's the case, personally, because I don't think the world is just flooded with, like, emu demons or whatever. I think that what we see is I think emu's mostly... I don't think his power is infinite. I don't think the world is filled with emu demons, so I don't think that the world is in grave need of that. So I don't personally think that's the case, but it's an interesting idea. Nonsense, thanks for the 5. Mosa is a 1,000 dragon. Oh, 1,000-year-old dragon at the top of Elbaf in heaven. I don't know about a dragon, but Mosa being in Heaven Realm, that could be really cool. Because Heaven Realm is currently just... Heaven Realm is just... it's just a mystery to me right now. I don't have good guesses for Heaven Realm. JWP, thanks for the 10, man. I was watching your video a couple days ago, and at the end I thought to myself, damn, Zoro and Sanji really need future sight. Then I went to watch the weekly podcast and saw the title and laughed out loud. Yeah, the title of the last weekly podcast, I don't know if it was this... It wasn't this week's. It might have been the week before or the week before that even. But yeah, Zoro and Sanji, they need future sight. I don't know what they're doing. Because at this point, it's just like, everybody fucking has future sight. It's just, you kind of suck if you don't have future sight. In Marineford, I feel like we even got implications that the admirals had future sight based on the fact that they were able to not take damage despite being hit by Haki attacks. So we saw that with Akainu and Aokiji. And that's something that is unique to... that seemed unique to Katakuri earlier, and Katakuri revealed that he was doing that with future sight. Who wins, Batman or Zoro with prep time, says Elmdale. I'd say if it's in the DC universe, with DC logic, Batman would win. But if it's the One Piece universe, in the One Piece universe, like, if characters are, like, faster and stronger, the thing with the DC universe is that, like, and Marvel universe in general as well, is that it's kind of like characters could have crazy high levels of strength and speed and durability and stuff, but because everybody's sharing the universe with so many other main characters, you have so many instances where characters like a Spider-Man or a Wolverine... there's like some storyline where Spider-Man manages to beat like a Herald of Galactus or something like that. Like, shit happens. And Batman, you know, all the number of characters that he's taken out. Like, there's like a scene where Deathstroke trips the Flash and stuff. Because it's supposed to be like, it's a shared universe where there's so many main characters and so many storylines and so many interpretations. It's almost like when you need lower, weaker, street-level characters to somehow compete with the stronger characters, logic kind of goes out the window. And instead it's just like, oh yeah, like, yeah, in theory this character should just get absolutely massacred and speed blitzed right away, or they shouldn't be able to do any damage whatsoever to the superpowered super character or whatever. But they just play with the logic a little bit to be like, well, what if I use a flashbang to, like, blind his eyes or something like that and, like, manage to react to this in time or something. And just, there's so many things that just get pulled out, and you kind of got to stretch the bounds of what makes sense, and it's just to make things more level. Whereas in One Piece and Shonen in general, when they're written by like one author who has like a specific power skill that they're trying to establish or something like that, that's not the case. So, like in something like One Piece, even a character even pre-time skip, right? Just the fact that like it's not like CP9 was moving at light speed or anything like that, but they were just moving fast, too fast, that even characters like Luffy, Zoro were having trouble keeping up with them, right? And so that like Luffy would get speed blitzed by Lucci early on till Luffy learned Gear 2 himself, right? But then you can go to the DC universe and it's like, well, Batman, who's certainly like got way slower reflexes than like any slobby Lucci, because Batman's just a normal street level dude. Somehow Batman's still able to kind of like, do stuff to fucking Kryptonians and stuff in the right setting and doesn't just get murdered in a nanosecond, So in the One Piece universe, where that sort of logic is actually where like One Piece logic applies, Batman would just die. Zoro would just like through observation haki or a single just like cutting slash or something like that, he would just kill Batman immediately. There'd be nothing Batman could do. But in the DC universe with prep time, or whatever, and that's regardless if Batman gets prep time or not. There's nothing Batman could do to defeat Zoro. Zoro would just observation haki the shit out of whatever he needs to do and just kill Batman, okay? But in the DC universe, with DC logic, yeah, Batman's taking Zoro because Batman's dealt with a lot stronger and faster characters than Zoro with just BS. Because the DC rules just dictate that that's allowed. JP, thanks for the 10. Undertale's gameplay is pretty bare bones, but it had a ludonarrative style for its story that blew people's mind in the 2010s and contributed to an indie game boom. Deltarune is a sequel series. So is that kind of like the same period of time where like Binding of Isaac became really big and then obviously Hollow Knight? Is that like when the indie game boom really started, or am I mixing things up, or has that always been a thing? So I feel like I started seeing a lot of those names all at a similar period of time. Jamari Cruz, thanks a lot. Laffy is a previous member of Rocks who is mentoring Blackbeard. That's like a hidden island theory. I've seen that theory from the hidden island. I actually clicked and watched that theory. I thought it was interesting, but I didn't buy it by the end. I thought there was a lot of interesting little references to history. I think that could be really cool if that's the case. I didn't buy it, but I was like, maybe he's onto something. And I really like Hidden Island's theories. I think they're really, really creative. I don't really watch other One Piece YouTubers' theories in a long... I think the last One Piece YouTubers' theory that I watched actually might have been that Laffy video by Hidden Island. But I really like Hidden Island's theories. Ankit Patel, thanks for the 5. Even the big One Piece mural theory that I did, I reference Hidden Island's Emu Music of Marie theory, because that's a big component of what I think makes the mural work. So I think he was really onto something with that. Ankit Patel, thanks for the 5. First stream I've ever caught. Watch all the VODs. Oh, I'm glad you're able to tune in on time. Do you ever feel like a lot of the One Piece community refuses to criticize the writing of One Piece? Yeah, because I think that it's just people are big fans of One Piece at the end of the day. Like, people like One Piece is... It's like... How do I explain? One Piece's biggest strength is its writing at the end of the day. So, like, it's... One Piece is a tricky story because, like, it's so much better than so many other anime and manga at certain things. Like, there's just no point of comparison for it anymore because it's 1,100 chapters and we're still seeing the story, like the broader story, click together better and better and more clearly than before. Like, just the sheer vision of the tower that it's built is just so absurd that you have to appreciate One Piece no matter what. There's no other points of comparison to it, right? Like when people say, like, well, I think Hunter x Hunter is better than One Piece or something like that, or I think whatever the fuck, Full Metal is better than One Piece or something. Like, what they're really saying is, like, we think certain Hunter x Hunter arcs are better than One Piece arcs. But the entire story of One Piece is just such a Goliath titanic achievement of storytelling that it's just not even comparable, right? Like, what you're really saying when you say Hunter x Hunter is better than One Piece or something is you think the Khmer Ant arc is better than any One Piece arc. And that's probably fine, but like, it doesn't matter which series you're really looking at, anime and manga wise. There's none that like just straight up like or if you say like, well, I think Steel Ball Run is better than One Piece. That means that you think that like JoJo's Part 7 in isolation is better than any One Piece arc, right? Those are the things that people are really saying. But what One Piece is as a totality, it's just operating in its own zone as a story, like as like an actual. It's the only modern day epic that exists in manga, so it's in its own category, right? It's like you can't compare, like comparing like Lord of the Rings or some shit to other shorter running fantasy books or whatever. Okay, so One Piece. Like, everybody who's a One Piece fan and is really deep into One Piece respects the hell out of it, and we know that there's nothing else like it in the sphere, right? There's just One Piece, and then there's other manga that can all be really phenomenal in their own ways, but it's in their own ways, right? One Piece has its own distinct way in which it's untouchable, right? In that category, right? I'm not saying One Piece is the best manga, period. Or anything like that. I'm just saying that in terms of what it is, it's its own thing that can't really be compared to anything else, right? Now, the tricky thing with One Piece, though, is that, like, everybody loves and is so immersed in the gigantic story that it's become that where One Piece can be weaker is, like, arc to arc, chapter to chapter. There are plenty of other manga that are more consistently well-written than One Piece because like, there's so many things that just take place in One Piece that are kind of just like, okay, this was kind of dumb. This is kind of silly. These characters are fucking, like, background pieces. Oda's not doing this. He's not using these. Like, there's so many areas in which it's kind of just, like, a little crude or unpolished in comparison to a lot of other series. So it's just complicated because then its highs are really good, right? Like, then Oda will put out, like, the Kuma backstory or, like, some crazy plot twist reveals that are like 500 chapters in the making or something like that, right? So the highs of the storytelling are so high, but like you can read like lots of random One Piece chapters and be like, okay, well, this was just a nothing chapter, or like this is some really dumb illogical plot events, or like we've seen this stuff before like 15 different times, or like why do we need all these side characters? Like there's so much like rough around the edges shit that happens with One Piece. And that's why it can be like, it's like, there's lots of things that you can critique that like, if other manga or anime were doing it, it would be critiqued, but people are so in love with like the highs of what One Piece is and just the overall epic nature of the story and like the Goliath of fantasy that it is, that you don't want to dwell on like where it's weak or where it's maybe not as good, chapter to chapter, arc to arc, week to week or something like that. Like the entirety of One Piece is such like a beautiful thing that's coming together that I think that's what is predominantly in people's minds. But there's so many things in One Piece that happen that other anime and manga, if it took place in them, that like people would absolutely shit on. So it's just tricky. It's kind of like One Piece has almost elevated itself above, like it's created like like the classic case is like One Piece deaths, right? Like that's like the simplest example I can give of like in any other series, this pattern that One Piece does would have it be torn to shreds, called Mickey Mouse, a joke, etc. But with One Piece, readers will bend over backwards to explain why this doesn't stop One Piece from being a masterpiece. I think that's the biggest thing, because I'm going a lot in, I'm kind of rambling here, but I'm trying to find what the actual main point I'm getting at, and that's that like One Piece has reached masterpiece status for a lot of people. Obviously for myself as well, because just the totality of what it's become and the totality of what the story's achieved, it is unrivaled. Like in terms of the overall scope of the vision and cohesiveness and generally consistent, maybe not every arc is amazing, but generally consistent. It's always building the story and you can always expect it to keep delivering in the long term overall, right? And we can all expect that the finale of the story is going to be the best it's ever been, right? Because it seems to be heading that direction. So One Piece has kind of hit this masterpiece type status, but then at the same time, for a series that's such a masterpiece, it has all of these like little flaws and like issues that it's just like, why does Oda do this as a writer? It makes no sense. So, but because it has this masterpiece status overall in readers' minds, again, things like the deaths, or things like the way a lot of character writing is done, or character stuff or whatever, or like a lot of just random little silly decisions or illogical decisions, people don't want that to become, people want to shield the masterpiece from those points of like critique, because it's kind of like become this sort of like unassailable ultimate story, if that makes sense. So I think that's why a lot of things that other stories would be ripped apart for, because One Piece, like, people want to preserve the idea that it's just the ultimate masterpiece, they will bend over backwards to try and argue why this doesn't apply to One Piece, even if the arguments make no sense, and so on and so forth. So I think that's generally how I view it. At the end of the day, I'm just like, we can critique this stuff and One Piece is still a masterpiece, but I don't think that's how people want to view it, because there's just a lot of attachment to the idea that One Piece is the ultimate story for a lot of people. And so you just, yeah, it's just the way it is. Okay, continuing on. Angel Rise, thanks for the 5. I have a feeling that the way to hurt the Gorsei and Holy Knights is by combining observation, Haki, and armament. Oh, that's an interesting idea. That's a really interesting idea. Because, I feel like observation Haki is a big part of Elbaf so far. I think it's being hinted at quite a bit. And so, because it's being hinted at quite a bit, I wouldn't be surprised if this is an arc where the characters have to improve in terms of observation Haki, and that would be a great sort of cause for them to do so. Dick so small I piss on my balls, thanks for the 10. Hanafuda was snuffed the same year Ace told Yamato about Kid. Kaido and Apu set Kid up about Kid the same year Ace told Yamato about Kid. Ace told Yamato about Kid? I actually don't remember this at all. I didn't know Ace told Yamato about Kid. Kaido and Apu set Kid up because Kid made his old ship out of Hana's bones. Kid will rebuild a ship with Killingham's mythical dino bones. I thought Ace told Yamato about Luffy. I did not know Ace told Yamato about Kid. But Kaido and Apu set Kid up. Okay, that's interesting. Because we do know that Kid... Hanafuda worked with Kaido and everything like that. Kid stealing from Hanafuda, that'd be interesting. Kid rebuilding a ship out of Killingham's mythical dino bones. I don't know about all that, but that's some interesting thinking. I don't know. Pasty Cash says, the flaws are minuscule in comparison to its greatness. I agree, but that's partly why I think it's okay to talk about them. I think that's why it's okay to talk about them. But I think that a lot of people don't view it the same way. So it's just frustrating when there's things that other series would clearly be destroyed for, but One Piece gets a shit ton of praise for. I don't know. He told Yamato about Ace Beige Law? He did. Yamato mentioned Kid, but Ace did not say a thing about Kid. Okay. He told Yamato about Ace Beige Law. Okay, and Cavendish. Okay, I guess I just don't remember the discussion as much between Ace and Yamato, because I try and tune out everything Yamato related because it's dumb. I kind of want to check that out though. Check out their little conversation. Nah, it doesn't matter. Yeah. Fading Faces, hi Morge. Hey, Fading Face, what's up? Flaws are okay, Oda's a human. Oda's got to do so much. Like, the amount of work that you got to do to write One Piece chapter to chapter is just insane. Like, it's... Any weekly mangaka, I don't know how they do it. Like, how do they keep doing a coherent story over a long period of time when you have to pump out so much week after week? Like, when do you even get time to plan your future scenes? Because you got to, like, every week it's like, well, I got to figure out all the good dialogue. Like, a bunch of good dialogue, obviously, for this chapter, the framing, scene direction, all of that for this chapter. Like, tell a good story in this chapter, and then they have to draw all of it and get that all pumped out within 7 days, right? But then at the same time, they need to be planning where everything is going in the future and, like, how the rest of the arc is going to play out, and then how all of that's going to play out down the line. It's just so much. And the big thing is that I really feel like a lot of these, it's crazy because like we forget that shit, but a lot of these mangaka would probably be like 10 times better storytellers. We're seeing, keep in mind, with the storytelling of most manga, right? We are seeing most of them at like 20% of their storytelling ability. Because if they were just given more time, imagine how much more coherently thought out all of their narratives would be, right? Because they're having to do this on the fly. Like, it's like every day it's just like, come up with stuff right now for what's going to be happening in the scene, make it a good scene, make a good dialogue, etc. But then also somehow figure out how this is going to play into all of the future scenes of this arc and all of the future of the story, right? Like, there's so much all in one go. It's also why a lot of stories start off, a lot of these mangas start off with their strongest storytelling up front. You know, like I think personally Naruto, Bleach with the Soul Society, etc. And then they can hit repetitive patterns, or like some of their flaws can show up more as they go because they didn't have that stuff planned out. I do think that's One Piece's, the biggest thing that's kept it going is that not just Oda's natural creativity to keep coming up with good ideas on the fly and his energy, but the fact that he had the full vision for the story, or at least the climax, very coherently planned out from the beginning. So it's a little bit easier for him to keep working towards what he's trying to get to. But think about it like this, right? Like I just mentioned Bleach as an example. So Thousand Year Blood War, when it first released in the manga, was absolutely universal. Like there's some revisionist history of like Bleach fans claiming that it was always considered good. It wasn't. It was a joke in the anime manga community when the Thousand Year Blood War manga was releasing. It was kind of like a train wreck that everyone was tuning in to watch, and people were making fun of it, people were trashing it. Bleach was just considered a joke for about 10 years because of the way that it ended, okay? But look what happens if you give Kubo just like a bit more time to plan. If you just give him like a bit more time to actually sit back and be like, okay, well, so this is actually what I wanted to do with the characters and the story structure and stuff like that. This is actually what I had in mind. And then suddenly it's like a fucking Thousand Year Blood War is currently my favorite arc in Bleach. This is my favorite arc that's happening right now. A lot of it is being elevated by the anime's production and all of that stuff. And a lot of Kubo's flaws turned out to still be his flaws, regardless of how much planning time he gets. A lot of the dialogue is corny, cringy, yada yada. That doesn't really change, but the overall story and what he's trying to do with all the characters and the flow of the narrative is so much better. He just needed some time. It's hard to do that shit week after week, especially because he wasn't in good health, right? Look at Hunter x Hunter, where what Togashi's getting to do. Remember when the boat arc recent chapters were coming out? When the boat arc recent chapter, like the last stretch of like 10 chapters, people were losing it over the last stretch of chapters because every single chapter was so absurdly detailed. It was so absurdly detailed in like the chapter to chapter storytelling, how much content we were getting every chapter, the level of depth each piece of the story was adding. There was just, it was unlike, like you compare it to like a random week to week story, and like the difference is like night and day, even compared to a One Piece chapter, which like we all love One Piece obviously, but Hunter x Hunter's chapters, week to week chapters, were fucking like on a totally different level in terms of sophistication, quality, depth, detail, all of that, right? And that's just what happens when Togashi gets a year to sit in his bed and plan. So it's like, it's almost just like, it's kind of fucked that you compare anime and manga to like actual books or like TV shows or movies, which are the product of like God knows how much time planning and restructuring and drafting stories. But like mangaka have to just do this shit. Like they start and then they're not allowed to stop ever. It's just like, okay, go. And now go for 5 years straight and just keep coming up and you don't get breaks. Sometimes they get breaks, like they get their Golden Week shit. God knows they get their Golden Week breaks. I fucking hate Golden Week. Whoever came up with that shit, they just don't want to work over it. I'm just kidding. Japan has a crazy hard work culture. But Golden Week, I don't know how hard it could be over there in Japan when they're getting Golden Week. It feels like every other fucking week. How often is Golden Week? How often is... When is Golden Week, Japan? I swear they get like 10 Golden Weeks a year. Oh, Golden Week is just 1 week? I swear the Golden Week happens all the time. I swear there's been a shit ton of times it's like One Piece is on vacation because of Golden Week. Or something like that. I don't even know what Golden Week is. Is Golden Week multiple times in Japan? No, it's just once per year, but it feels like it happens all the fucking time. I don't know. They've just got some holidays over there. Yeah, fuck Golden Week. Yeah, fuck Golden Week. Fuck your shitty ass holiday. Go write some manga. Anyway, but seriously, the mangaka life, it's just insane. Like, imagine just being told you have to start writing a story and then you can never stop. You get no breaks, right? It's kind of just like, start right now. Okay, once there was a guy named Ender Ainami, and he went to the store, and then he met a bad guy, and then the bad guy had a superpower, and then Ender Ainami met a mentor who gave him an ability so that he can learn to fight the bad guy. But turns out the bad guy's part of an organization. You just have to keep going, and you can't stop talking forever, for 5-10 years or something, until your story is finished or your mangaka is canceled because nobody wants to fucking read your rambling. It's hard. JWP says, on God, Golden Week happens like 4 times per year. They got like 3 or 4. Yeah, I swear to God. Doesn't it happen like... I swear it happens pretty often, right? Okay, let's continue on. Grizzly Adams, thanks for being a Pirate King team member for 22 months. I hope you enjoyed the last Pirate King podcast, man. I think it came out today. I think it just dropped today. Because I recorded it yesterday. So it should be up today. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed that one. Morch, which character feels like more of an OC to you, Sabo or Yamato? Honestly, Yamato, because Sabo kind of did. It just feels so random with Sabo's inclusion, but Yamato just feels really fucking random. Like, literally, we're at the final battle, and then it's just like, oh, I use the Crocodile's nephew example all the time, but like, we're at the final battle, and then this character who has nothing to do with anything just pops up. And she's like, I'm Yamato, and I'm Odin, which is a character that we already spent a whole shit ton of storytelling, like, getting to know and establish, and the story's happening all in his wake. But she's like, I'm Odin, and I'm just part of the plot now, and I'm a big deal, and I'm just gonna be in a ton of chapters, but, like, also kind of not do that much. She stalled Kaido, I know, but that was kind of like Oda giving her something to do, because Oda could have had like 50 different ways to stall Kaido, if that makes sense. Or like, I guess stalling Kaido for a little bit was valuable, but that was really her only thing. Like, so many characters stalled Kaido over the course of the fight. Then she chases a Kazembo, and she gives a pep talk to Momonosuke, but she's kind of just like running around everywhere as this presence, yelling about how she's Odin. She's got a bond with Ace for some reason. She has advanced Conqueror's Haki. She talks about how she's a fan of Luffy despite never having met him. Like, she just likes Luffy, and she loves Luffy and the Strats, and she wants to fight for Wano despite never having been to Wano. She literally just, like, it feels so fan fiction, like a fan character insert, because it's like, it's a character that's not in the story, but she read about what happened in the story, and so now she's put herself in the story. It's like, that's generally not far off from what actually happened. It's like, the character wasn't in this narrative, but she read about it and then put herself in. Did anyone watch that Teen Titans episode of like, who watched this Teen Titans episode? It was the one where like, with Batmite, or not Batmite, yeah, I guess Batmite, like the one with the fifth dimensional being, the Robin, the little Robin. Teen Titans, Robin, what is it called? Robin, Batmite, what is that? Larry. It's the episode with Larry, like the Robin from the other like the Robin cosplayer from the other universe, right? This is it's a character in a different dimension who's watching the stories of the Teen Titans, becomes obsessed with Robin, puts himself into the story of the Teen Titans, and is like, I'm Robin too. And just like that, he's part of the story. It feels really fucking bizarre. Yeah, Larry. Like, Yamato is basically like Larry. Except the one catch is, everybody liked Yamato because she's a hot girl. That's it. She's got a sexy design. That's it. Again, if Yamato looked like Larry, no one would fucking like Yamato. It would just be a character who just fucking is dropped into the story. It's just yelling, I'm Odin, I'm Odin. I'm nothing to do with anybody. Luffy, I'm your biggest fan and I'm going to be in the Straw Hats. I'm Odin. Kaido, I hate you. You're my dad. It's like, I guess that's how we're writing you into the story. I don't know. Marco Saint, thanks for being a Yonko tier member for 24 months, man. Ayo, it's been a while since I could catch a stream. Love the new setup, and that you actually didn't put up any posters until you made your own, lol. Yeah, I got it. I think I'm just generally not like a very decorative person, which is not good if you're like a content creator and YouTuber because you want the background to be interesting. But yeah, the posters that we got in the background are, you can find them. It's funny you mentioned them. Here, I'll link them to you guys. Here we go. Let me drop you guys the link. Oh, wait, actually, that link doesn't work as well now. Here. Hold on. Here we go. Yeah, if you guys want the... Oh, no, it does work. Well, I'll give you the link to the whole thing. Let me give you the link to the whole thing. There we go. Yeah, if you guys want the posters, we're keeping the posters up. So we're keeping the... So the island posters... the plan was basically to stop the production of them. And move on to new stuff. But people like the island posters. Here, let me share. People like the island posters, so we're keeping them because people still want them, and we took them off the site for a little bit, and then we got requests to keep them on the site. So if you want to get the island posters, you can keep the island posters, because we were starting the villain collection, but we've got plans for that. So we're putting that on pause for a tiny bit. So just hold your horses. If you started buying the villain collection, hold your horses, because the rest is coming. Just hold your horses a tiny bit, okay? But we're sticking with the island posters for a little bit, so we're going to keep them all available for a bit longer. And if you get all the island posters, then you unlock the final poster, which is the moon, which would go right here or whatever. But yeah, if you're interested in getting island posters, you can still get the island posters. And we've got some great deals if you want to get them in bulk now to make it easier for people to try and fill out their full collections. So check that out if you like. Always love when people bring up the posters. Der Boppler, thanks a lot for being a Yonko tier member for 6 months, man. Theory, Luffy End of Story Final Attack will be a gigantified version of Red Hawk from above that looks like a giant flaming sun, maybe even called Red Sun. Looks like a giant flaming sun. That would be pretty cool. Holy shit, I didn't think about that. That would be kind of crazy if Luffy's final attack is like a giant sun attack. It would be, because Red Hawk, I always figured that's Luffy's only fire attack because it's tied to Ace, but it would be really cool if Oda brings that full circle and has that be an actual giant finishing move. That's a great idea, Der Boppler. Wait, we should actually get to the topic of the stream. Let's get to the topic of the stream. What are we doing here? Maybe it's called Red Dawn? Oh, shit. You might be right. That's a great idea. Red Dawn. All right. Here we go. Yeah, let's just kick around some of the Elbaf matchup ideas. All right. Elbaf matchup. Elbaf matchup ideas or possibilities. What is it? Okay. So the way we can view it, let me take the temperature again. Most people are not viewing this as the final battle of Elbaf, right? Let me just take temperature one more time. I've done this before. Like I've done this poll before, but I'm just going to check. Is this Elbaf... Is this the final battle of Elbaf? Yes, no. All right. What the heck? Oh, no. We're good. Sorry, just checking some other things. Yeah, that's good. What the fuck? Alright, I got some other shit to look into after this. Okay. Okay, so people are pretty split. Is this the final battle? I'll let you guys decide a little bit. You guys figure that out. Because if it's the final battle, then that changes things, because it's like, that means that what we've got is what we've got, right? 3v1, Luffy, Loki, Gaban versus Gunk Mu. Maybe Joy Boy's Pirate Gang was called Akatsuki Red Dawn or something. Well, the D Pirates. That'd be interesting. Saeed Abdo says, Morge, Loki only addresses the person on the other side of the call as Shaggy/Mosakun because he's associating them with the snow Dendenmushi that's cold resistant and has voice recognition. So you're basically saying that, like, the Dendenmushi itself tells us nothing, and it's just Loki calling them that because of the... I could see that. I could see that being the case. So, like, we have no way of telling at all what the other person on the other side of the snail is outside of context clues regarding their situation and their way of speaking. Like, their personality a little bit. Eric Joseph feels way too rushed into the final battle. How about we... Okay, so people are saying no. It's just tricky because then, like, if this is not the final battle, then that opens up the possibility for, like, Shamrock to come back and shit, you know? L, thanks for being a Yonko tier member for 28 months. Bought a Fruit of the Devil t-shirt. I love the simplicity of it. Any new shirts coming up soon? I'm glad you asked. It is possible we have some new shirts coming up soon. Because we actually just talked to somebody who... somebody reached out who does an anime merch store online, and they had some shirt ideas that they wanted to collaborate with us for. So we might soon. I like Fruit of the Devil a lot too. I wear my Fruit of the Devil shirt sometimes out and about, and I like the hoodie a lot. I think I prefer the hoodie a little bit. Or not the hoodie, the long sleeve. The long sleeve. Shamrock, Kid, Yuruj, Eno coming in some way. Oh man, if this is the final battle, then like Kid is just out of there. Kid is just out of there. I can't imagine Yuruj showing up. Look, so we got Imu Gunko, right? So we got Imu Gunko. We got... I wonder if Imu would fight with Gunko's abilities in that case, right? That makes sense. We got Killingham, Sommers, Evil, Dory, Evil, Brogy. Those are our matchups at the moment, right? The problem is that we could have, like, Shamrock come back, right? We could have... like, if the final battle happens soon... Like, if this is not the final battle, then the matchups don't really matter as much here. Because we could have Shamrock coming back. Oh, hold on. I gotta grab the door. 1 second. All right. Wait, actually, let me get the door. Hold on. Yeah, so figuring out the matchups actually is very, very difficult now. Imu Gunko. Okay, so let me just jot down what I feel, right? I feel like Sommers fighting Robin / Chopper is a possibility. I feel like Killingham fighting Usopp is a possibility. I feel like Luffy fighting, and Loki fighting Emu slash Gunko, and then Evil Dory and Evil Broggy being fought by Zoro and Sanji is a possibility. That's my stuff off the top of my head. How do we feel about this? That stuff makes sense to me somewhat, but then I feel like there's a lot of struts that then just don't have much to do. Maybe Usopp fights killing him with somebody else? Kevin says, has any other arc started with a big fight, then had another one later? I don't see it. Started with a big fight, and then had another... What do you mean started with a big fight? So, if this is not the final battle, this would be like the midpoint of Elbaf. So, like, a lot of arcs have like a middle battle, and then you move on to then the final battle, right? That's pretty common in One Piece. Brook versus Gunko? Yeah, Luffy, Loki, / Brook versus Gunko? Yeah, if we don't have the full lineup, maybe it was too premature to try and think of matchup possibilities. No, come on. Usopp's got to fight someone. I think killing him versus Usopp makes 10 times more sense than Jinbei versus than killing him. Emu uses Domi Reversy on Loki, and we get Luffy versus Loki potentially. Ooh. Ooh. Luffy versus powered up Loki. I think that's interesting. Okay. I'll just say these are Morge guesses. Morge guesses. And then I'll say interesting chat guesses. How about that? We'll do one for interesting chat guesses. Interesting chat guesses. Domi Reversied Loki versus Luffy. Zoro versus killing him. I guess. I just feel like Zoro's a bit like... To me, killing him's ability, like the nightmare power and everything, it's just a weird matchup for Zoro. I think people are hooked on that because Killingham's got the trident. I think people only think that... I only started seeing that once people saw that Killingham's design is cool, right? Once people were like, oh, Killingham's got a cool design, then they're like, okay, maybe you fight Zoro. Because initially, people thought Zoro was going to fight Sommers when they saw Sommers with the sword, right? And Sommers kind of also seemed like the most intimidating of the God's Knights outside of Shamrock early on. But now Sommers' stock has kind of gone down. I just don't feel like Zoro fighting the nightmare creatures, it's just not interesting stuff for him, right? It's just cutting big things. I don't know. Sanji versus Sommers? I could see... Okay, I also... You know what? I could see Sanji joining in the Sommers battle. So maybe Sanji versus Robin, Chopper. Because how would they beat... But then who's fighting Dory and Brogy? Well, then what the fuck's Zoro doing? Is Zoro fighting Dory and Brogy? There's no way. I'll do a question mark. Sanji. I do think Sanji versus Sommers could be thematically fitting. Marco Saint says, sad to see Morge not using Microsoft Paint anymore. Oh, shit, man. I feel bad about that. I don't want to feel like I'm betraying the culture. You know, like, Microsoft Paint was where that's my roots. I used to... It's just, this is easier. Microsoft Paint is good for some things. It's good for drawing. It's good for when I need to draw things on the fly. Usopp versus Dory or Brogy? Oh, yeah, Usopp versus Dory or Brogy. Okay, fuck. Usopp fighting Dory and Brogy could be really cool. I love the idea of Usopp versus Dory. Hold on. Usopp versus Dory Brogy would be sick. Then maybe we do get Zoro versus Killingham. And then Sanji versus Sommers. I think Robin's got to help versus Sommers. Loki versus Dory and Brogy. I'm not even going to mention Hadruden. Hadruden does not belong in these talks. Dory / Brogy versus Loki. Eric J.O., thanks for being a Yonko tier member for 20 months, man. Sup, Morge. Been thinking it would be cool if end of story Robin learned sorcery similar to the magic book Emu has shown. Don't think Oda will give her Haki at this point. Oh, if Robin becomes like a real evil witch like that? I think Justin Holland was talking about Nami stealing the book. What if she stole the book and gave it to Robin? I think at the same time, though, Robin doesn't need... I think that's too much of a divergence from Robin's current fighting style and abilities. So I think that'd be like a little bit out of left field because Robin's fruit has so much potential. Even if Oda doesn't have her learn Haki, he could have her awaken the fruit. It's interesting because Robin's fruit, the way it functions, it's one of the most unique abilities in One Piece. Like, it's a really fucking random ability. It's not an ability that... It's a very strange ability to imagine in the first place because a lot of One Piece abilities are simple in concept and Oda comes up with creative ways to use them, like the flame fruit or like, you know, all Zoans are just animal fruits and things like that, right? But Robin's fruit is something that's very, very... It's like a crazy unique concept. I've never seen anything like that in another story where it's just like, you can grow your limb. I don't know where Oda even fucking thought of that. It's a really fucking weird idea to think of. What if you could grow your limbs out of like that wall or that door or that TV or something like that? That's such a random ass concept. But Robin awakening her fruit, that's a simple next step that she could do, right? Thanks for the 2. Loki gets turned into a demon and fights Luffy. Yeah, I definitely think that's an interesting idea. So we got that as a solid option. Luffy fighting Domi Reversy Luffy. Sorry, Luffy fighting Domi Reversy Loki would be just insane because it's like... How to explain this? It's just like... Loki already seems like approaching Yonko level on his own. So if he's Domi Reversi'd, would that make him like stronger than Kaido or some shit? You know what's interesting? This is a crazy idea, right? Morge, crazy idea. I don't think this is gonna happen. Crazy what if? But I think it's worth talking about. So what happened so what is the arc that we have been saying Elbaf seems like it draws a lot of little parallels or references or callbacks to? What's the arc that we've been talking about? What's the arc? What's the arc? There's one particular arc. Yeah, I think Loki should be too strong to get flipped, yeah. YY7 says Little Garden? No. Dina says Thriller Bark. Yes, Thriller Bark. Okay. And what was the primary conflict in Thriller Bark? They had to deal with all the Strats had to fight. In that one, all the Strats had to fight. Yes, Luffy gets flipped. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, they had to fight Oars/Luffy. Wouldn't it be crazy if the Strats had to fight? Because, like, we've done so many... Like, the talk comes up so often, like, can Luffy just solo the Strat crew? Can Luffy solo the Strat crew? Wouldn't it be crazy if Luffy gets flipped here? Domi Reversi'd Luffy versus the Straw Hats. I think that'd be kind of insane. I think they would just die. Because even if you want to, you can debate. I think a lot of people lean that Luffy would beat the Straw Hats by himself. But even if you want to lean towards the idea that no, it'd be even or close so the Straw Hats could win, Domi Reversi'd Luffy versus the Straw Hats, that'd just be downright unfair, right? That would just be absurd. But I feel like Thriller Bark was also kind of a reminder, though, that because Oars is way strong. Like, Luffy's shadow in Oars is way stronger than Luffy himself, right? But the Strats were able to put up a good fight, so it's kind of like a little reminder not to underestimate Luffy, or sorry, not to underestimate the Straw Hats. Thriller Bark was, so it'd be kind of cool if something like that, something similar happened. It might be too specific, too fanfiction-y, but it'd be pretty cool. ESM says Strats are dead, bro. I mean, that's what it seemed like when when Luffy's fighting ability in Oars was pitted against the Strats, but then the Strats did really fucking good. They held out for a really long time. If anything, it just became a little unfair because Oars was a zombie, so he couldn't take damage the same. He wasn't hurt by damage the same way that like Luffy would be. Otherwise, I think the Strats might have even been able to get him. And I think that was also at a point in time that people were convinced that Luffy was now way ahead of the rest of the Straw Hats. But then it's like, no, they can fight Luffy even in that amped up Oars body and do pretty well. Digest, thanks for the 2. Loki believing he's a destroyer is why he will flip. Yeah, I think it's much more. I don't know if Imu even has the power to flip Luffy. I think that'd be kind of absurd if Imu could just flip Luffy like that. Because then it's just like, why doesn't Imu just do this to fucking everybody? Why doesn't he do this to fucking Shanks, Fine Dragon, do that to him? Why is there even a problem going on in Mauritius? It's just a fun little what if. And yeah, Loki believing he's a destroyer is why he will flip. Yeah, it might be a personality thing where like if you have that in you, then if you have a sort of like tendency or proclivity towards like evil or something, maybe that makes it easier to flip you. ESM says, if Luffy gets dummy reversied, I'm not watching One Piece anymore. He'll get turned back. He's not going to be like that forever. He'll get turned back. It's not just like Luffy's the bad guy from now on. Man, I wonder how Dami reversied Luffy would fight with his powers. It'd be kind of crazy. YY7 says, why is no one talking about Loki versus Hadruden? Hadruden's a bum, but they're brothers. Because that's already happened. We already saw that matchup. Canonically, Loki just rolls him. We saw it in the flashbacks when they were kids. Loki just fucks him up. So there's nothing to really watch there. Where's the... Let me pull up the little flashback thing. Yeah, look at this. Look at this. Yeah, that's what happens when Loki tries to fight Hadruden. And Hadruden's a lot older than Loki, I think, too. Or a good amount older. Yeah. Yeah, that's why you don't fuck with Loki. Liz says, I think it's only the Giants who can be Dami reversied. Why would that be, though? I feel like anybody should be able to get Dami reversied. But there must be some limits to it, otherwise, why wouldn't it just happen? Like, why wouldn't Imu just do it to everybody? Vasco says, if Loki gets Dami reversied, I'm dropping One Piece for a week. Till the next chapter comes out. Nice. Also, let's get the stream likes up to 150 real quick. Let's get the stream likes up to 150. It says, Morge, I think Loki and Hadruden might tag team against most of the monsters. Just seems like an Oda thing to do. I think we could get a bit of a Loki-Hadruden tag team, but it would be kind of like... You remember when there was that one moment at the start of the Impel Down arc where, like, Luffy runs into Buggy? And then, like, Luffy and Buggy, for, like, a brief moment, they're, like, fighting the guards together, and, like, the chapter ends... I don't know if you guys even remember this, but the chapter ends with, like, Luffy and Buggy doing a combo attack. And so for a brief moment, it's like, wow, it's like they're being portrayed as equals again or whatever. And then like the very next chapter, it's like, okay, well, this is kind of a joke because Luffy's a million times stronger than Buggy, and Buggy can barely beat one guard. So I think that's what it'd be like. I'm not convinced that Hadruden can beat any of these giants. Because like, they're now all... I'm not convinced. I think I'll need to see it to believe it. I don't know if Loki can beat a single one of the Dami Reversy giants. Dami Reversy Usopp. That was mentioned last stream. That'd be cool. Megazard says, we saw that Dami Reversy has a condition or two. He stabbed Brogy's hand with a knife and summoned the book before turning him. He likely can't Reversy everyone before doing that. Yeah, so it seems like something like if you get the king or the leader, then from then on, it can snowball into getting all the subordinates. I think that's what it looks like so far. I believe that's what we're seeing here. Yeah, I believe that's what's being presented to us here. Why West 7 says Buggy is the world's strongest swordsman with him. Unlike that bum Luffy, never disrespect Roger's true heir again. I'm sorry about that. Also, it's got the streetlights up to 150. It's a game-related ability, lol. Yeah, I wish I understood the game better. Does anyone have like a quick explanation for me for the game? I thought it's something like if pieces are surrounded or something like that, then they flip. But then someone said that's go. But then someone said, hold on, what are the rules of Reversy or Othello? What are the rules of Othello? The object of the game is to have the majority of this is too many rules. Okay, wait, it says a minute to learn. Here, everybody, let's learn together. Let's learn together, okay? Here we go. Here we go. Each player takes 32 discs and chooses blah, blah, blah. Okay, so some stuff. White disc is already placed on the board. Placement, blah, blah, blah. Okay, black always moves first. Alright, that seems racist. Cannot outflank and flip at least one opposing disc. Your turn is forfeited in your... How do I flip a disc? Alright, you know what? I'm bored. I don't actually feel like learning all this. I thought I need a... Okay. These are placed. The outflanked white disc between the two black discs. Okay, so it's just... If you have more... If you're outflanked, so you don't need everything covered up. You just need some sides covered up. Okay. Okay, I see. And now this is outflanked by... So you just need a piece on either side. Oh, that's cool. So if you have a piece on either side... So that if I'm black, I'm going like here or something like that, right? I go here or here. Either here or here, right? Unless I'm missing... Or here. Let's say... So if I go here, I think this is better because this opens up more, right? So I might want to go here because then I can open up another move here, right? So I'm going to go here. Oh, wait. The example stopped. Wait, let's play this online. Hold on. Can I play Othello online? Am I playing someone? Am I playing an opponent? I don't want to make a whole account. I just want to play. Okay, so I'm black. Go here. Oh, it's the same as the example board. So if I go here, then I'm... Oh, fuck. That was a bad move. I don't want to play this game anymore. Okay. Hold on. Fuck! How'd I get fucked so quickly? Okay, if I go here... then I've got my row right here. But he can go here and claim that or something. I feel like... Let me do this. I'm just getting fucked up by this computer. Okay. Alright, I'm not doing bad. But how do I press further? So I want to go here. This guy just keeps coming back. This game is fucking hard. But if I do this, I get 2 in 1, right? So I want to go here. My god. Oh, getting the side pieces is crucial. Because then that's the key, I guess. Getting side pieces is big. So this corner will be good for me. But then he can go here. The side piece is what I should have gone for earlier. Okay. Alright, but now I'm in a flow. Okay. So I'm going to claim this. And then that sets me up to try and claim this later. Oh, I can't go here. Can I only go I can't go diagonal like that? If I go here, he goes here. I feel like I'm not playing well, but I'm still winning. So that's what matters, right? So if I go here, then he can go here. No, but why would he go here, right? Why would he go here? There's nothing to claim there, right? Oh, shit, I fucked up. Oh, my God. I'm still in the lead. We're still good. So I'm here. Does he have any... Can he sandwich me anywhere? He can sandwich something. Well, I'll just go here then. All right. I'm fucking this computer up. They should tag me into One Piece. Because I'm actually saving... Elbaf would be saved if I was the one playing. Wait, am I screen sharing? Yeah. Oh, fuck. Oh my god. Diagonals are hard to beat. Okay. I can't really catch him there. How come this isn't turned? What's going on there? I don't have like a nice juicy, because now he can grab this. You know what? We'll call it a draw. But anyway, as you guys can see, that's basically a nice demonstration of how Othello works. JWP, thanks for the 10. This question has been making the rounds on Twitter. If Blackman and Kaido were the Whitebeard at Marineford, would the Pirates win? What if their crews come? What if both sides go all out, i.e. Garp and Mihawk don't hold back? ES7 says running away, Elmeo. I'm running away with the win. Do you guys see the score? Just check the scoreboard. What if both sides go all out, i.e. Garp and Mihawk don't hold back? If both sides... Okay. If we were to do that real quick... first of all, did I miss any other questions? Let me catch the other two first, and then I'll get you JWP. Dick so small, I piss on my balls. Thanks for the 5. Sanji and Zoro get converted, argue over who will claim more lives, and just attack each other. I don't think that'll happen, but that would be funny. Or no, well, actually, that's kind of Thriller Bark-esque, right? We'll throw it in. That'll be sweet. Sanji / Zoro get converted and fight each other. Kind of like Zoro and Sanji's zombies fought each other. J Ryder 203, thanks for the 5. Do you think some Heaven Realm characters could arrive representing white pieces? Maybe Rouge. That would be really cool if the cavalry came in like that, but it would feel so random right now. I don't know. I think anything can happen here. I think that's why it's such an exciting setup. I don't know if Uruj is going to make a surprise appearance, but it would be really, really cool if he does. Yeah, if Uruj just showed up out of the blue. But how much of an impact can Uruj even have at this point in time? It's just Uruj, right? Can he even beat a God's Knight? I don't know if he can even beat a God's Knight. If I were to say real quick, like, the hypothetical of, like, so on the Marineford side, right? Marine side, you have, and if we're pretending everyone's trying, right? Then they've got Garp, Sengoku, Kainu, Aokiji, Kizaru, and then you got Mihawk, Doflamingo, Hancock, Kuma. That's the main ones, right? And then everyone else is just like plus random vice admirals, right? Am I missing anyone big for some reason? Garp, Sengoku, Kainu. Yeah, that seems like the rundown, right? And then over here you've got Whitebeard, Kaido, Big Mom. You got Marco, King, Katakuri. You got Jozu, Vista. Don't read too much into the order. I'm just kind of stream of consciousing it. Marco, Jozu, Vista, right? Marco, Jozu, Vista. Why am I forgetting everybody? Queen, Smoothie, Cracker, Jack. Let's just say once you get to Tobiropo and like those officers on, it just cancels out with the vice admirals. Let's just say, even though vice admirals aren't, it's vague. It's like a range. Okay, let's just say that those guys cancel out. Okay, so this is really what we're looking at. The tricky thing is, So you're saying, would the pirates win? If the question is, would they escape with Ace? They definitely escape with Ace. Because they pretty much escaped with Ace as is. They succeeded in escaping with Ace. Does Ivankov and Jinbei and them show up as well? Ivankov, Jinbei, Crocodile? Like, does Luffy's squad show up? Let's just work with this, right? I personally think that if this was the lineup, and it's like the goal is to get a straight win, then I think that the Marines maybe still win. I'm not sure though, because you can have Whitebeard versus a Kainu and you just call that a wash. Okay, so Whitebeard and Kainu let's just cancel that out. Okay, so Whitebeard and Kainu, we just cancel that out. Okay, and then Kaido. I'm pretty sure if you just have like Kaido fight Mihawk for a while, it's just call that a wash for a while. Okay, like if Zoro maybe I don't know. If Zoro with like all of his bones fucking broken or whatever can scar Kaido before he's even mastered Advanced Conqueror's Haki, I'm sure Mihawk's gonna do fine stalling him for a while. Even if you think Kaido wins, right, which is perfectly fair. Let's say these are extreme difficulty fights, right? Like these characters are basically taking care of one another for some time, right? I feel like you need. It's tricky because I feel like you need. I feel like Big Mom can beat any of these individual characters, but if she would lose to two of these characters. Garp, we know, basically took on like an entire Yonko crew plus Aokiji at the same time. So I honestly feel like if you took two of these, I think if you had Garp and Sengoku fight Big Mom, then they'll beat Big Mom. It's not even a wash. I think they'd straight up beat Big Mom, like Garp and Sengoku together, because that's like basically two Admiral type characters, right? And then you've got this squad: Aokiji, Kizaru, Doflamingo, Hancock, Kuma. I think Aokiji and Kizaru alone are. They're not gonna. I think if you gave them all this help, like Hancock is gonna do work here. No, because Hancock's not really on their side though. Hancock's not on their side. She's almost against them, right? So like we're actually putting. That's my question. How much? Like you said, Mihawk's trying, Sengoku and Garp are trying, etc. What about Hancock? That actually matters quite a bit. I think it's a very, very close fight. I think you can argue it either way. I might be being generous to the Marine side, depending on how people look at it. Yeah, I might be being generous to the Marine side, depending on how you look at it. It's hard to say. I think it's a very, very close fight. And then I think even something as simple as like Hancock's allegiance could tip the scales either way. Andrew Nami says, if their win condition is the same as the canon story, which is rescuing Ace, of course they win, unless Ace still falls prey to the Yo Daddy joke. Yeah, that's the thing. Of course they win if it's just get Ace back, because they basically did. But if Ace is always going to turn around and fight a Kainu, well then maybe the pirates would still save him, because like maybe they were just undermanned, so they had nobody to jump in and stop Ace from doing that, or hold off a Kainu right there. So that's a little bit different, you know? Yeah. I'm generous to the pirate side, honestly. I just think that, yeah, maybe I'm being generous to the pirate side. It's just, I do think that, like, a lot, like, the tricky thing is that I might be being generous to the pirate side, but, like, we also saw it's like how we view things on paper versus how Oda actually portrayed the war, right? So like we saw that according to Oda, in the context of the war, like I'm setting it up so it's like, well, you have Aokiji and Kizaru basically fighting like Marco, Jozu, Vista, Katakuri, all of these guys at the same time, right? But in the Marineford War, you gotta remember, Oda was basically like, well, Jozu just stalls Aokiji on his own for a while until Jozu gets distracted. And Marco basically stalls Kizaru on his own for a while until Marco gets caught with sea stone cuffs. Right? So like what's the debate here? Is it just like how we view the characters and like what's supposed to happen? Like according to us, oh, Aokiji's just supposed to walk over Jozu, and like Aokiji, Kizaru, they're just supposed to like run through all of these commanders. Or are we looking at like, okay, but in the actual war though, Aokiji didn't just walk through Jozu, and Kizaru didn't just walk through Marco, right? And now you're adding in all these other characters to help them. You see what I'm saying? So that's why it's complicated, right? In the war, Doflamingo stopped Jozu by himself, right? So like, there's a difference between like how we the fans perceive something's supposed to happen versus like how Oda actually depicted it. So we got to keep that in mind. So I'm just saying, well, all circumstances the same. It's basically like we're saying, okay, if Aokiji wasn't just fighting Jozu, but now had to fight all these other characters at the same time, and Kizaru wasn't just fighting Marco, but also had to fight all these other characters at the same time, then it's complicated because it's like, on paper, in theory, we're supposed to be like, well, look at how Kizaru did against Luffy. Kizaru should do X, Y, and Z, but then in actuality, in the exact context we're talking about, which is the Marineford War, Kizaru wasn't fighting like that. So, you know what I'm saying? Dimian Wright says, so this is exactly what I'm talking about. Dimian Wright says, Jozu got one shot, it was just stalled for plot. If you're... This is what I'm talking about in terms of the difference in terms of like what actually happened and then versus like how we believe things should happen. So it's just like, you can say it was just stalled for plot, and I agree, in retrospect, Aokiji probably should have been able to beat Jozu easier than that, but then in actuality, it's like, I know like lots of times people argue that like, well, the admirals couldn't go all out because of the context or something like that or whatever, but we're keeping the context the same, which is the Marineford War. So whatever their performances were there in the Marineford War, we're taking that as basically how they're going to fight, right? So that's why I think it's closer than people are just saying, because that's what they did. Like, that's what happened, you know? Because I don't think it's fair to be like, well, Aokiji would just one shot, like, he would just low diff Jozu and Queen and Cracker all at the same time, when it's like, okay, but in actuality, he didn't even low diff Jozu by himself. So what are we supposed to do with that? Even though for us, like, I agree, Aokiji should low diff Jozu probably, but that's not actually the story. So I don't know. Yeah, in fact, Jozu, like, in fact, Oda didn't even establish that Aokiji beat Jozu straight up. Jozu got distracted, and then Oda was like, because Jozu got distracted, now Aokiji's able to get an opening. So Oda was actually very generous with Jozu's portrayal there. But at the same time, he was also like, Doflamingo by himself can catch Jozu. So it's like, I don't know. Danny on, thanks for the 5. What is Luffy's drums of liberation beat causes? What if Luffy's drums of liberation beat causes Gunko to react and Imu disconnects for a moment, allowing the tides to turn? That would be cool. I mean, music has already been established as like a potential, like influence on Gunko that's very significant. Pass D Cash, thanks for the 2. Only Luffy, but I would prefer if Brook does it somehow. But I could see what you're saying. Like, it would be fitting if it's the drums of liberation. I would love to see Brook playing in conjunction with the drums of liberation at some point. Pasty Cash, thanks for the 2. Only Luffy using Gear 5th will be able to flip pieces. Only Luffy using Gear 5th. Yeah, that would be cool. Luffy using Gear 5th, because, like, that's the idea of the game, you know, the Othello game. Yeah, that'd be really cool. Vista with Solo, not gonna lie. Well, the difference in scenario is that in this scenario, we're saying that Mihawk's actually trying the whole time, so that would go differently. But you can't make that argument for Aokiji. Like, Akainu, Aokiji, Kizaru, they were all trying during the war. Like they were doing their job. Like there's no other scenario where they wouldn't be where they would be trying any harder than like in the biggest war the Marines have ever had against pirates. You could argue that they had to hold back. I've seen arguments that Akainu, Aokiji, and Kizaru had to hold back to not do too much damage to Marineford. But then it's like, okay, well then that's the context, which is Akainu, Aokiji, Kizaru, they have to hold back. So in that case, that's an advantage to the 3 Yonko crews, right? Yeah, it's just a complicated question. Because it's just like, how are we supposed to reconcile, in a hypothetical of like, what would happen if this added element was in the story? How are we supposed to reconcile, like, well, this is what actually happened. This is what we think is supposed to happen. This is what we think was supposed to happen or something. Because, like, if you had readers write Marineford according to how readers' power scaling is, then Marineford would be over immediately. It would be like a stomp. It would be like, well, Akainu and Whitebeard cancel out or something, and then Aokiji one-shots Jozu, and Kizaru low diffs Marco, and then like I don't like whoever the fuck Garp stomps Vista, and then the war's over. That would be how like according to readers' logic, readers' power scaling, the war is over in a chapter, right? So it's like if you're so confident that like this is how Oda would write it, the Marines would still beat all of these Yonko together. It's like, well, that's just creating your own narrative that's like totally ignoring what Oda says actually happens when these two groups go at it. So I don't know. I don't know. I just think there's a big disconnect there. I agree Oda's inconsistent with power scaling. I just find it funny that readers are so confident that like, no, if you had all of these Yonko crews together and then you lined up all the matchups a certain way, the Marines would still just totally stomp because this would happen and this would happen, this would happen. When it's like, you can look at the story and be like, but Oda actually wrote a version of this, a simplified version of this, and none of that played out at all like what you guys are talking about. So what does this mean? You know? Again, just like the Aokiji Jozu point is a point, because like I crossed out all the matchups and I was like, okay, so it seems like it might come down to something like 2 admirals plus some Shichibukai having to go up against like a bunch of Yonko commanders, and that'll be what decides who ultimately wins the war. And it's just like there's what the readership believes the admirals should do to these Yonko commanders on paper, which is also what I personally lean towards. But then the irony of it being that like that's also not at all what happened when the admirals actually fought Yonko commanders in the actual story of One Piece in the Marineford War that we were tossing around this hypothetical of. You know? That's just funny to me. Charitar, thanks for the 2. How old is Gunko? Gunko would be probably like Brook's like 90, right? So Gunko's maybe 20 years younger than Brook or something like that. Maybe a little bit more. Maybe Gunko was like 10 when Brook was like 30. Or maybe 15 years younger than Brook or something. I don't know. Black Wolf says, but that was just for the plot. Yeah, but we are saying, what if that same plot played out, but with more characters added, right? So you have to use the context of that plot. I don't think you can just say, but that was for the plot, when you're also asking, okay, what if the Marineford War plot happened, but these characters were added? You know? Then it's like, okay, so we're working with that plot, right? King AP07 with a good point. Admirals are always scaling to the enemy they're fighting at that moment. Yeah, I think Oda always does that with the admirals. Like, they're kind of... But that's part of my belief as to why, on average, admirals are supposed to be below Yonko, because they fit this nice middle ground where, like, they can work for whatever context, if that makes sense. You see what I'm saying? Like, there's no moment in the story that would ever make sense that, like, you have Kaido standing in front of, like, Actually, you know what? I'm underestimating, because, like, Marco on his own... I think readers also do underestimate the Yonko commanders a bit, because Marco on his own drove off Big Mom. Right? So, like, to say that Marco is just like a pushover for Kizaru, that wouldn't be the case. I think no matter what, Marco would be a problem for any Admiral type character in general. Like, Akainu couldn't just walk through Marco when he was desperately trying to get to Luffy. Marco was able to single-handedly be like a bit of a wall. I'm not saying Marco can take all the Admirals or anything, but like, yeah, Marco has... I think I think Marco can be underestimated. I think Admirals, Oda just does use like, he's like, okay, I'm gonna have the Admirals kind of like, not like, they'll struggle maybe more than they should against like Jozu and Marco and stuff. You have Fujitora versus Sabo, but Fujitora's not really trying, so it still makes sense. You have like, obviously Fujitora and Rikogyu versus Karasu and Morley, right? So not even Sabo, and it's still taking some time, but it's established that the Admirals can't go all out. So there's just like, Oda's kind of flexible with them. At the same time, I feel like if you have someone like Kaido and you put him against like we saw Kaido versus Luffy in Act 1, Kaido just would low diff him no matter what, right? So I do, and like Shanks versus Kid. Shanks just like one-shots Kid no matter what, right? So I do feel like Admirals are supposed to be a little bit below these guys, in that like, if you have an Admiral fighting these Yonko First Mate commander types, it's still gonna be some sort of a extended to some degree bout, right? It's not just gonna be a one and done. Versus if you have like Kaido or Shanks fighting like first mate level characters like Kaido versus Luffy and Wano, or like Shanks versus Kid in Elbaf, that's just like an immediate stomp, right? Shouts to Marco for being the exception, not going down right away to Big Mom, but that's kind of his thing. So that's just like a thought that I have. Yeah, but I think at the same time, Admirals can be kind of flexible, and then it's like, okay, well, but I also need the Admirals to go up against like Whitebeard, and they can hold their own against Whitebeard really well. Or I need like Kizaru to fight Luffy, right? And Kizaru's gonna give Luffy a great match too, right? So I think Oda can be kind of flexible with the strength of the Admirals, but I do feel like that's ultimately why they're like this sort of glue area in between. Like a Yonko First Mate versus a Yonko, generally that's a stomp, right? We've seen that multiple times in the story, right? Marco Big Mom is kind of the one exception. But an Admiral versus Yonko First Mates, Yonko Commanders, Oda can write that as like a bit of a protracted battle. Obviously the Admiral's above, but Oda can write that as a bit of a protracted battle. But then if you need the Admirals to fight Yonko level characters like Marineford, Whitebeard, or Luffy or whatever, that can also be a protracted battle. So I don't know. That's kind of how I feel, but you know, maybe we need more data to really confidently say that. Hawks, thanks for the 5. Thoughts on recent arc outfits? I think Zoro's been done wrong ever since Wano. Wano, everybody looked really good, especially in the Onigashima battle. Yeah, I don't think there's anything crazy wrong with the Elbaf outfits or anything like that. It's just, it is the style. Somebody made a comment recently, which is that, like, in recent times, Oda's kind of gone with, like, all the Strats having their own distinct color for every arc, like the Power Rangers, and that kind of homogenizes their design style a little bit, whereas pre-Timeskip was more varied, and I do kind of agree with that. But aside from that, I do think Zoro's Elbaf outfit is not good. Tyler Cole, thanks for the 5. Off topic from this, but how do you think Luffy will react when he hears Garp was captured by Blackbeard? I don't know. I really don't know. It'd piss him the fuck off. Maybe that's one of the reasons that news is being hidden from him for a while. Synesthesis, thanks for, or not thanks, but I kind of agree with your comment. Emu/Joyboy level, greater than Pirate King level. You then say next is Fleet Admiral level. I'm saying just like Emu Joyboy level, I think, is then followed by Pirate King level. I think that's then followed by Yonko, then by Admirals, then by Yonko First Mate. I kind of think that. Vaguely. Healthy Whitebeard would likely destroy Marco. Yeah, just keep in mind that, like, Whitebeard could literally beat Ace in his sleep. In his sleep, he could beat Ace. Right? That was, like, when Whitebeard was, like, moderately healthier a couple years back. So, that's, like... That's just kind of representative of the gap, I think, between some of the Yonko versus Commanders, you know? Ace did get stronger later, but it is what it is. Like, Ace was still Commander level at the time that he joined Whitebeard Pirates initially. Tomahawk PWPT, thanks for the 5. The convo always gets bogged down because people, we're all guilty of this, keep trying to apply specific factors to general categories and vice versa. Yeah, it's also, I think it gets bogged down because, like, Oda writes in so many caveats to so many fights. Like, this character clearly won, but he was moderately injured, or he was tired, or he was distracted, or it was in this setting, so he had to hold back a little bit and pull his punches, or he was, like, feeling sad, or, like, conflicted. There's so many things. Because I truly think that the Oda's cool characters, like the characters that he really loves, he loves them. He reveres them. He spends so much of the story building them up. He does not want to make them look bad, so he'll always give them some sort of an out. But yeah. Papa Dog Sucker says Ace was weaker than most second commanders. He was still new to his job. Yeah, I agree. But I'm saying, like, in general, though, we've seen this story before. We've seen, like, what Kaido does to Luffy in Act 1 when Luffy was about Katakuri level, right? We've seen what Shanks did to Kid when Kid was probably stronger at that point than, like, a standard first mate. So, yeah. All right, everybody. We are going to call it here. Thank you very, very much, everybody, for tuning in. Yeah, we can't actually do the Elbaf matchup possibilities too much at the moment because it's just like we don't know if it's the final battle or not yet. We will probably revisit this later on. I realize that this was a premature stream. Remember, everyone, no Monday stream. I will try and fit in 2 streams this next week. So maybe a Thursday stream and a Friday stream. So no stream Monday. I'm sorry about that. First skip Monday stream in I don't know how long, probably a year or something like that. But